Hello, everyone. I'm Raina from Garden District Bookshop, and welcome back to Virtual Happy Hour. I am excited that all of you can join us. Tonight, we have a very special guest who used to live in New Orleans and is now over in California, Serena Valentino. She has a huge following all around the world. We've been selling her books for quite a while now, and it is great to have her on Virtual Happy Hour. She is the author of 7 Disney villain books, and the 8th one, if you've been paying attention, just got a cover reveal and announced today, so we're going to be talking about that. I am going to click this button and let her into the room. Hi, Serena.
Hi, everyone. My dog's going to bark now because when I say hi to people, he barks. See?
That was perfect, on cue. Great. Does he do that when you answer the phone?
Yes. I try to just say the person's name or hello or good afternoon because he'll always bark if we say hello.
That's awesome. That's kind of awesome. Did you do that on purpose? Did you train him to do that?
No, he put it together that when people called, it's usually because they were at the front door, like to deliver food or something. And so he knew it was time to bark.
That's hilarious.
I know, he's a dork.
I also want to mention to everyone who is watching, you can comment if you have any questions or anything else you want to comment. Just say hi. We love to see where people are watching from. So even if you don't really have a question, go ahead and comment and tell us where you're watching from.
That's awesome. It is
good stuff. So Serena, it is Virtual Happy Hour. What are you drinking this evening?
Today's a straight bourbon day.
Yes.
What are you drinking?
I have some rum Sprite. Oh, thank you. Amy bought this for me like 2 years ago for Christmas. And now I use it for every Virtual Happy Hour. It was just a coincidence the first time, and now it's become a thing. So
let's do a virtual cheers.
Do it.
Do it. Oh, wait, this way.
Yes.
It's like 3 o'clock in California. I'm like having happy hour at 3.
I was actually thinking about that earlier, and I was like, oh, that's a little early for happy hour. But you know what? As they say, it is 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is 5 o'clock in New Orleans.
That's right. That's right.
And I just moved from there. I'm kind of still on New Orleans time, so there you go.
Yeah. So you are from California, is that right?
I'm from California. Yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of moving back home.
Like I'm from the Bay Area. I lived in San Francisco for like 25 years or so before I moved to New Orleans, and now I'm back.
Are you back in the Bay Area?
I am in the Bay Area. I'm in Pacifica, which is close to San Francisco.
I have some friends like in San Francisco, and they've been posting some pictures of the skies. Not really the fires, because I think they're far enough away where you're not really seeing fire. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we had orange skies. It was completely dark here, and we actually drove to San Francisco that day to take my dog to the vet for like a routine thing, and it was so eerie because it was still dark, like driving like 20 minutes away and having it still be dark. It was creepy, that like and everybody in my feed was in the Bay Area was having the same phenomenon, so, but luckily we're not having any more days like that. And we were having like hazardous air quality, but now it's okay for us.
It's cleared, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good. It's so hard, especially when you're watching the news from far away, even social media feeds from far away. It's a totally different story when you actually talk to somebody who is living it right now.
I was worried about y'all because of because of Hurricane Sally and how it was Sally, right? I don't ever get the name.
Right?
Yeah, like what a close call it was for y'all down there. And I was just like texting all my friends and, like I want updates and missed you guys, but gosh.
It's been very stressful the last 2 hurricanes because it's like, it's coming right for us. We get days off school. The bookstore closed for one of the days, not for Sally, but for Laura. And you're like, what do we do? Do you leave? Do you stay? And then all of a sudden it just dodges off. And it's a beautiful day outside. And you're like, oh, I feel good about that. But also that means it went somewhere else, so it's like,
yeah,
it's difficult. Okay.
That's what I was saying. I was like, you know, you're sitting there hoping it doesn't come for you, but that means you're hoping it goes to somebody else, and that's a horrible feeling, you know? It's
Right.
like, oh, I don't miss that.
So we've started to get a couple of questions. We'll go back. I am going to mispronounce your name, and I'm sorry. Sharilis?
What?
Sharilis Serrano. I'm mispronouncing her. Oh, I pushed the wrong button.
That's okay.
I'm mispronouncing her name, and I'm so sorry.
Oh.
But what made you start writing about the backstory of the Disney villains? So how did that come about?
It's a funny story. I was doing comic books, one called Gloom Cookie and one called Nightmares and Fairy Tales, and an editor at Disney sent me an email and said he was going to be at San Diego Comic-Con and would I like to meet him for lunch. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. So we had lunch, and he was like, we were just curious if there's any Disney villains you know, not Disney villains specifically. He said, was there any Disney characters that you'd be interested in writing about, like writing a novel about? And I was like, villains. So yeah, they approached me, and I snapped up the villains like immediately. So that's how that came about. I guess he saw my comics. I was doing a lot of retellings of fairy tales with Nightmares and Fairy Tales. He liked like how dark they were and the approach that I was taking. And I was like, are you sure you all are reading like like reading my comics? Because they're really dark and they were violent and not at all what I would expect Disney to be down with. And in fact, when I sent my first outline to him, he was like, are you holding back because we're Disney? And I'm like, a little bit. He's like, no, do what you want, like write what you think, you know, write the story that you want to tell. And if there's any issues, we'll let you know. And I don't think there was anything that he didn't allow me to keep in that first novel, except for one thing that was different from when I got to the part of the film. I have to like stick with the events from the actual film, and I did stray from that, and that was the only thing that he wouldn't allow me to do. But he was very specific to say it was because it strayed from the canon of the original animated movie. So it's been an amazing experience working with them.
I mean, that sounds, for lack of a better word, like a fairy tale. You're sort of doing your thing, the writing, and then they come to you. They're like, hey, you want to go have lunch? You're like, yeah, whatever, sure, Disney, that's cool.
Lunch too.
Like, better have been. He was wining and dining you. He didn't know what you were going to say. So, yeah. Lunch on Disney.
It was so fun. Yeah. I mean, I was intimidated because I hadn't written a novel yet. I had been doing comic books. I wasn't entirely certain I would be able to do it or if I would like doing it. But he was so encouraging and so sweet and kind of, you know, showed me the ropes. And I'm just so glad that he did, because I love writing for Disney and I love telling these stories. So yeah, it's been amazing.
That's amazing. That is, I mean, it sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's like a dream job. I mean, I love fairy tales. I was retelling fairy tales in the series that I was working on when they approached me. So I just got to keep doing what I was already doing, but in a totally different way, and play with these characters that I grew up with and that I've loved forever.
Right. And so much, I mean, what I love about it is that we don't get the backstories. We only get the backstories of the villains for exactly what we need to know to move the story of the princess. That's what you always get in the films, especially.
Right.
And then you get this opportunity to flesh out these characters that we know so little about and learn their motivations. I mean, there are reasons why people are good and bad and make certain decisions, and you get to tell us what those are. And
Are you hearing my dog? I'm so sorry. We're in the front of a house, and he hasn't been in a house yet where like you can hear everything outside, because like in New Orleans, like I was in an old shotgun and the entrance was on the side of the house, and so we were buffered from like all straight noise. And here, like I could hear every little thing.
Right, but he thinks he's supposed to be warning you about every little thing now, because
that's his job.
Yeah,
that's his job. Yeah. But yeah, back to the villains. It's part of the reason why I chose them. Aside from the fact that I gravitate to that sort of thing anyway. I like that they're not developed because it gives me so much more freedom to create their backstory and to kind of do whatever I want. Really, I mean, Disney's really open to all of my ideas, and I don't think they've ever told me I can't do anything. It's been really amazing coming up with the stories for all these interesting characters.
So that kind of plays into a question we had from Tony, and he's asking, what does Disney provide you with for the writing process? Do they provide you with anything like an example, Grimhilda? Do they give you authorized novelizations of Snow White from the 30s, or like deleted film concepts, or anything to help you build that?
Oh, do they give me anything in terms of like helping me in my process, or do they dictate what I have to do?
It sounds more like, are they offering you resources, not really dictating what you have to do, but saying, hey, here's this old book that came out in the 30s. Here's some information, deleted film concepts of deleted ideas. Are they providing you with any sort of resources?
If I were to ask them for something like that, they'd probably be happy to send it to me. They send me all the films I like the whole catalog of films on DVD from them, even ones from the vault. Very exciting. Yes. They're very specific, like, these are from the vault. And I literally imagine like a big steel vault in which Mickey's head is embossed like in metal, and they open it and it creaks and it makes this like funny noise, and then they take the one copy that they slip in an envelope and send it to me. That's how I like to think of it.
Okay, for a little while, there was a Disney store in the town where I grew up, in the mall. Mm-hmm. And anytime anything would come out of the vault, I was sure in the back room there was a vault. Because, right. Of course, like a bank. Like, there's a vault in the back of a bank, and that's fine. Right. They take things out of the vault. So when I was growing up, I was like, well, they came out of the vault. The vault's in the back. They just went in there and they opened, big like turning wheel and everything.
You were a kid when you thought that, right?
Yeah.
See, I'm an adult.
I mean,
I still think of the.
It doesn't go away though. Like, once that image is in there, like, I know better. Mm-hmm. But that's just the picture I have now when anything comes out of the vault.
Mm-hmm. But in terms of other, like, what my process is, like, I do lots of research on my own. So I find the deleted scenes. I look up stuff that happened with the Broadway plays. I look all that up. But if I do have a question, they're there and ready to help me. My editors are fantastic. So, yeah.
How do you decide what order you write in? Like, is that just the one you wanted to write, or do you have a list so you know what the next ones are going to be? Do they dictate that list?
No, I do have a list of characters that I want to write, and I do have a long game plan that I've been planning almost since the beginning, as readers have probably picked up on, with the little clues and little tidbits that I throw out here and there. I mean, if they read closely enough, they'll see pretty much who I'm going to write about. But I have contingency plans for the orders in which they're going to be released, because sometimes, like, say if like a live action film is going to come out, we might decide it would be better to have the book come out like during that time. So I have like contingency plans. Like, it's like, okay, this is how I'm going to do it if this book comes out first. This is how I'm going to do it if another book comes out first. But up until like a particular point, I decided the order that they were coming out. It's only been recently that they've been chiming in and said, hey, do you mind if we do it, we do this one first? So for example, Lady Tremaine was actually going to come out sooner than it is now, but they had suggested, like, hey, how do you feel about doing Mother Gothel? And I got so inspired by her, because there's so little about her. Like, even online, even the filmmakers, like, nobody really I don't think a lot of the people had like a strong sort of feeling about who she was, you know, aside from the actress who voiced her. Like she, I think, gave her a lot of her character. So I was just like, oh my God, this is a free for all. I can do anything with this woman, you know, which is what I did. But yeah, so I pretty much pick the order. They don't tell me what characters to do. I pitched them like the characters that I want to do, and they've pretty much they I don't think they've said no to any of the characters that I've wanted to do so far. Yeah.
So when today is the day, by the way, that Cold Hearted was announced. So today's the first day that we knew exactly what the book, who the book was going to be about, and what the cover was going to look like, and all that. So that's very exciting to be doing this event on that
It's
day.
so exciting.
It's
Yeah.
just like a coincidence because we just picked this was the next available date when when I contacted you or you contacted me.
And it was very last minute that we decided to do the announcement today too.
Yay!
And I was like, oh my God, it's coinciding. This is so fun.
So I was really excited when this one got announced because one of my favorite novels of all time is Confessions of an Ugly Stepsister by Gregory Maguire.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who don't know that book, it is the Cinderella story told from one of the ugly stepsisters' point of view. And so I have this like image of that family in my head. Mm-hmm. And now you are writing their mom's story, and I'm very excited to piece all of those bits together in my head.
There's a lot of Anastasia and Drusilla in this book too. It's their story as well as Lady Tremaine's. I mean, the focus is her, but you know, their family, you know, and their voices are pretty prevalent in the story as well. And I don't want to give anything away though. I literally almost gave something away. I'm like, and at the end, you know, and I'm like, no, Serena, don't do that.
No, the setup is good. Yes, and that makes sense, obviously, because like you're saying, they're a family, and she had them and was growing up with them before we really get into the story, you know, that everybody knows, where Cinderella comes into the picture. Mm-hmm. They're older. I mean, I don't know their age. You probably do.
Right.
I don't know their age, but they're not babies, you know. So she has them in this whole life, and however she got, you know, her daughters in this life before that, and then now they're here in the piece that we all know.
Yeah, we start the story off before she's with Cinderella's father, and they're living in London, and Lady Tremaine lost her first husband, the girl's father, and so we see a bit of that, and we see like what their dynamic is like in London. And then we move into the events of Lady Tremaine meeting Cinderella's father and uprooting her entire family to the many kingdoms to live with Cinderella. And they have such high hopes about what it's going to be like in the many kingdoms, this magical place where anything is possible. And they find themselves in a miserable situation. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is another question. Vanessa asked, is there going to be a TV series? Specifically, she says on Hulu, but I'm just going to, I mean, why narrow it down to Hulu? They could just go straight to Disney Plus. It could be.
I mean, I see why she was asking about Hulu, because I think that Hulu does the Disney series that are maybe too mature for Disney Plus. So that's, I think, why she would ask. I have no idea. So my answer is, I don't know.
Now, here's sort of a businessy behind the scenes question. Who owns the book? Owns the book. So if they were going to make a TV series out of it, would that go in a traditional way that books are purchased for the screen, or
this is technically reinvented IP. So it's Disney's IP. It's not mine. But Disney really treats it like it's mine, and they have since the beginning, in terms of my creative control and, you know, asking me what I think about artwork and layout and really having a say about, you know, how things go, which I really appreciate. I mean, the big company like Disney, similar companies don't give authors that sort of, creative input. Technically though, like if there was ever to be a TV show or a movie, it wouldn't, it would be Disney. So I wouldn't, I don't own the series.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that answers questions. See, that's at the bookstore. So we talk a lot. Obviously, we talk books a lot, but we've had discussions about this in your books because we sell them a lot. We've had events with you. You sign books for us a lot, and and for the record, if anybody would like a signed book, you can get them from Garden District Bookshop. Yes. And we currently have signed book plates because COVID and it's hard to get books back and forth and stuff. But we can get you signed copies. Are we doing personalized book plates?
Yeah. So if somebody wants a personalized book, just let Garden District Bookshop know what they want written. I will put it on a book plate and send it to them. No problem. Yeah. Yeah. I love the relationship that I have with you guys, and I want to just keep doing it even though I'm here in California.
And we appreciate that. We appreciate that a lot.
Oh, you guys are amazing. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you. All right. So Dylan asked, what book was the most challenging for you to write?
The two top most challenging books were The Odd Sisters and Evil Thing, I think. The Odd Sisters, because I'd wanted to do it for so long, and it was the culmination of all of the books coming together in an interesting way, in a way that I've been planning for a really long time. And because they were the characters I created, it was about my characters, and I felt all this pressure to live up to my own expectations. With Evil Thing, at first, it was really challenging because I had never written a book in first person before, and it didn't feel natural or organic to me because I had always used this fairy tale, voice, and I was used to being able to go into everybody else's heads and switch back and forth between points of view. As readers know, I love to skip to different timelines and then jump back, and I know people hate that, but that's the way I love to write. And with Corella's story, I had to toe the line. I just had to go straight forward, and I had to tell it in her point of view. But once I hit second draft, I felt like, oh my God, this is like the coolest way to tell a story right now. And I loved it because I was really able to get into her head. And I found that I was able to get into other people's minds, but from Corella's perspective. And it was fun. I really loved it a lot. And even though it was intimidating at first, I feel really proud of that book.
That's really interesting. Like, it's a personal challenge, I guess. Right. Yeah.
And you know what? And at first, the Lady Tremaine book was intimidating because Evil Thing was so well received. Everybody was like, this is your best book. This is the best book that she's written. I mean, the exception of, a handful of people that hated it, which is
they're always going to be those people. There's always going to be.
Right. I was just like, oh, this isn't going to be as good. They're not going to love it as much, But I've literally thought that about every single book I've written. And my editor reminded me of that when I had my freak out with her over the phone. She's like, Serena, you say this every time. And every time it's beautiful. Like, calm down. So yeah. I mean, they've all been challenging in their own ways, but I'd say like the last three have been the most challenging.
So are you going to write a book where all the characters come together? That's a story from Jazzy. Or not a story, but a question from Jazzy.
All of what characters? Like all the villains? Or is Jazzy listening and could maybe answer?
Yeah, we can table that one. And Jazzy, if you can elaborate in the comments, we will.
I could probably venture to say the answer will be no. We're not going to ever have all the princesses together. We're not going to ever have all the villains coming together and having a tea party. We're not going to have like other princesses visiting other princesses' castles. I want to stay away from the want to stay away from like mashing up too many characters. I really like the fact that they overlap. I like that they know who each other are. I like that the characters I created do know everybody, but I think you enter in a weird dynamic when you have characters from different stories together. I mean, I did it a little bit with Grimhild and Maleficent, but technically Grimhild is a ghost in a mirror, and she's visiting Maleficent in that way. And but we don't have like physical villains hanging out and like talking about how villainous they are. It gets, I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me to do that. I'm sorry.
That works. That's fair. That's a fair answer. All right, Brandon would like to know, are we going to get the answer to who Maleficent's parents are?
I decide you're worthy. It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. I'm never going to say no. Like, never. It might come out. I need to feel organically inspired to share that little bit and not have it be just something that's thrown in the book for the sake of throwing it in because I know the readers will like it. Not that I don't want to make my readers happy, but I need it to feel like it's part of the story and there's a reason to share that information.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it starts to feel canned, if it starts to feel forced, then the writing suffers. It's not your fault. It's everyone's fault. If I have to sit down and I'm writing on my own and whatever I want and I'm writing my own story, that's a lot better than if you sit down and you go, I want you to write this many words about this thing. Okay, well, right. It's, that's not going to read as well.
Right.
Let's see. Courtney asked, are you going to write a Queen of Hearts villain book?
I cannot answer what characters I'm going to be writing about in the future, honestly. Though she is on my list of characters I would enjoy writing about.
That was my follow-up question. Because if you can't actually answer what's next, right? Is it on your list? Is it a possibility? And the answer
just because it's on my list doesn't mean it's going to happen, though. Just say, say for the record, because I have a long list, and not everybody makes the cut. They need to fit into my storyline. They need to feel like they belong in the world. Like all those things to be taken into consideration. I mean, for the longest time, I wanted to do Cruella, but I didn't feel like she fit. And it wasn't until recently that I felt that we could take a break from the many kingdoms and step outside the many kingdoms and tell her story, So the Queen of Hearts would be a similar departure, even though they live in this, they live in Wonderland, it's still outside of the many kingdoms. And so, yes, I would love to write her story, but I need to figure out a way to do it that would make sense for me. So I'm not sure.
When Jazzy had a question too, will we be getting a Captain Hook story? And I imagine the answer is fairly similar because they're in a different world as well.
Yeah, Captain Hook is also somebody I would love to write about. And he's definitely on my list. I can't say if we'll ever do a book about him or not, but he is on my radar.
Which book did you enjoy the most to write? Enjoy writing the most?
I'd say Cruella, because I liked writing in her voice a lot. If y'all can tell by the fact that I was like pretending to be here on social media like all the time, it was a lot of fun. She was a lot of fun to write. I also liked writing Gaston in the Beast book. Like I had so much fun with him interacting with Odd Sisters because he was just like, what crazy women? Like what is going on here? So he was fun. I've had fun with all the characters, but I'd say the most fun I had once I got over my fears that I couldn't do it was Cruella.
When you bring up Gaston, that's really interesting too because there are all these. They're the main villains. They're these big bad guys, but there's always these side people as well. Like Gaston, he's not a side character, but he's not the main villain. And so
a lot of readers would argue with that and have argued with me about that. They don't see the Beast as a villain. They see Gaston as the villain. And I get it because the way that Disney told the story, he was like a misunderstood man with a good heart and or something. I don't know. Like looked cute in an ascot. He was furry. I don't know. And so he was not a villain, and probably because everybody who's about 8 to 10 years younger than me when that movie came out, that was their first Disney prince crush. And so
Okay.
Sure. If you notice, like his Prince version isn't at Disneyland. It's the Beast. The Beast like transformed like in the movie, right? Like
Right.
it's Belle and her prince, but she still hangs out with the Beast at Disneyland. So like people are really into him. They love him, and it's like I broke some sort of sacred trust by calling him a villain. Like I think people forget that the first part of the film they talk about what a jerk he was, and that's why he got changed into a beast, right? So, but yeah, a lot of people consider Gaston to be the villain, and I made him a villain as well, like in The Beast Within. Him and Gaston and the Beast Prince were like equally villainous in my eyes. So,
well, and an interesting thing too is like, at least from the movie. Now, I have not read tons of canon if there's something else out there, but for Beauty and the Beast, like the enchantress that turns the prince into the Beast, what's her deal? I mean, who is she? Do we know? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like that's a whole other character that has just a pivotal role in the entire story.
And that's why I created Cersei, because that's what I was wondering too. It's like this, enchantress lady is like, hey, take my rose. And like the prince is like, no, you're ugly. I don't like you. Leave. And she's like, fine, screw you. I'm turning into a beast. So I thought that I would make her related to the Odd Sisters and make her the sister of the Odd Sisters, and make the character more solid and have her be like a continuing character throughout the book,
right?
Rather than this person that just shows up and is like, ta-da, you're a beast. I enchant you and your castle.
Okay, thanks. Oh, so there's a question. Would you love to write about Scar? That would be very different. You're writing an animal's point of view.
Right. Yeah. No, I've historically said no to that. Because I don't know if anybody's ever realized, but I didn't write about the dancing cutlery in Beauty and the Beast. I don't really focus on the animals in the stories. I'm not keen on the idea of doing like a talking animal book per se. However, so many people want a Scar book. I found myself actually going, gosh, should I just do this? Should I figure out a way? Should I figure out a way to do this for them? But right now, he's not on my list, but he's like creeping in the margins, maybe. I'm not sure.
He might make it in by popular demand.
Yeah, I mean, I owe so much to my readers. They've done so much for me, and they're so supportive. And if I can mentally switch my brain into a place where I think that I could write it and do it justice, and I would enjoy doing it, then I would do it. But right now, my brain hasn't clicked in that place yet. Maybe after a couple more drinks, I might be like, yeah.
By the end of Happy Hour, you're like, Scar's next, yeah.
Who's number one? Yeah.
So I don't mind reading about animals talking or whatever, but I have a problem watching animals talking. I love animals. I'm okay with cartoons, but those movies like Air Bud and like soccer. There's all these movies that have like
okay. Those movies are not okay.
I'm not okay with it.
No, it's weird. They're not supposed to talk. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
if
they started talking to me, I'd be like, no.
Right, I'd be like, this is weirding me out. I'm not feeling special or like I should follow Lassie to the well. I'm like, I need to go and figure out what sort of demon is possessing my animal.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, my son loved those.
My sweet boyfriend was going to bring me some more whiskey. I'm like, no, I think I'm okay right now.
Yes. You're like, I don't want to promise a Scar book by the end of this. I have to make it
it's like right after
minutes.
He's watching in there too. And he's like, here, have some whiskey so you'll write Scar.
Right? That's hilarious. Okay, I do not know who this is. So Sally Mendoza is asking, is Dr. Facilier?
Yeah.
Who is that? I don't know who that is.
Dr.
Not by name.
Oh, Dr. Facilier is the voodoo doctor from Princess and the Frog.
Okay. I was sure I would know who he was, but I didn't remember the name.
I'm trying to figure out how you don't know that, but
because I live here, I don't watch the movie repeatedly.
Yeah. No, so I recently just released a statement on that, actually, because so many people have requested him, and it seemed natural for me to write the book because I lived in New Orleans. And before I lived in New Orleans, I wrote a lot of stories based in New Orleans before I started doing the Disney books. And I had considered it, actually, and I was going to have somebody consult with me on, various aspects of the character and the culture and the religion. But after thinking, it never quite set right with me. Like from the beginning, I felt a trepidation about writing his character, but so many people were saying, oh no, you should. We think you would do it justice. We think that, you'd be sensitive to, issues and whatnot. So I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe I can. And maybe if I get like a consultant, it would be all right. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized and feel strongly that a Black author should write his story, because I think there should be more Black authors getting published. And I think that it's important that one of the amazing Black authors like in the world should have the opportunity to tell his story should they want to. And I don't think they should have to tell it in my universe or include like the mythos or the characters that I've created for my universe. Because a lot of readers are asking me if I would allow like somebody to write it in my series. And I'm like, no, they need to tell it in their own universe. It needs to be their own story. They shouldn't be confined by, the rules and the universe that I've made. It should be theirs. And they're like, oh, but you can like consult. And I'm like, that would be lame. Like if this author wanted to tell a story, but they had me there telling them what they were supposed to do, that doesn't resonate with me at all. I think it's okay for us to not have Dr. Facilier in the villain's line, and somebody else can write the story and they can tell the story they've always wanted to tell and tell it the way that they want without me dictating, what they should write. So
absolutely,
there's a really long diatribe, but this is like a very topic, and a lot of I get it that a lot of readers want to see him interact with the Odd Sisters, and so they're sort of grasping. They're like, well, how about if like you told them how the Odd Sisters work? And I'm like, that would suck for them. I mean, unless they were like a huge fan of the series and it would be a pleasure for them to do something like that, then I would be fine with it. But not somebody who just wants to tell a Dr. Facilier story. They should tell the story they want to tell.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a difference between being there in case they have a question or if they want to do it, but also not pushing what you've already done onto their new creative venture. I mean,
right. They should have the freedom to do the story the way they wish.
Actually. And, and people, this is sort of against the way most people think, but the truth is that as one rises, we all sort of rise together, authors, booksellers, other booksellers. That's something that blows everyone's mind a lot of times, is that indie bookstores don't compete against each other. Right. We're friends with indie bookstores pretty much all over the country and indie booksellers. Because if you buy a book from an indie bookstore, then you're more likely to buy a book from us too. You're less likely to buy something from the big people. And the same goes here. If another author picked up that Dr. Facilier story and did a good job and wrote it, then your villain stories also move forward because everybody's looking for other stories similar, in villain stories. So why compete when you can all move up together?
I don't even look at it as competing at all. You know, there's room for all of us to tell the stories that we want to tell. And my whole point is it's not that I don't think I could come up with a good story for him. It's not that I don't even, and the concept that I came up with, it could have been a really powerful story, but it's not my story to tell. You know, I'm not a Black man. I have not lived that life. I don't know what that's like. And I think it would be so much more powerful if a Black author could tell that story. And that's really what it's about. And it's about giving more Black authors work. Do you hear that, publishers? Give more Black authors work. So
the books will sell.
they will.
I don't know if that's
what I have to tell you. Yeah.
If you build it, they will come. Like, you know, it will sell. Okay, so Vanessa has a question. When will we see the inside cover of Cold Hearted?
You know, I want to keep the inside cover and the subtitle secret for a while longer. Back in the day, I would make readers wait until the books came out to see the inside jacket. I would sometimes have contests. I know I keep looking off. Is that crazy? I would sometimes have a contest. And if the books like hit #1 on Amazon, then I would reveal sooner. Oh my God, the books hit #1 on Amazon all the time now. So, and a lot of the readers actually don't like seeing the inside covers before the books come out. So I try to be considerate of that.
You have to do one of those Instagram things where the first picture is the front cover, you know, is the original cover, and then the second picture. So you can swipe if you want to see it.
You're like, don't swipe. Yeah, that's a good idea. Like, so don't swipe. I see a cool question. Did you want to like take it? It's about Grimhild.
Go for it.
Yeah.
You see it, read it.
Do you want to read it? Because
are we trying on
Mariana's question? Yeah.
So she's asking, does Grimhild commit suicide? Because when she falls from the cliff, she thinks, and I quote, that she knew what she needed to do. After all, she had chosen her path long ago. So are you going to say that? Does she commit suicide? Does she fall? What happened?
I mean, we leave it, I mean, it's somewhat ambiguous, right? In the way that we left it. But in my mind, she felt like that was the only way that she can protect her daughter, you know, because she kept trying to hurt her. She turned into this thing that she didn't like. And so, yeah, she made the choice to jump off the cliff.
There you go. Tony has another question. Let's see. Watching the 1950 movie, I'm stuck on how sassy, spirited, and proactive Cinderella is, like sticking up for her right to go to the ball. Why do you think she gets a lot of flack, and how do you view her?
I'm confused. Who gives Cinderella flack, like in general, like her Lady Tremaine and Anastasia and Drusilla, or just as like a fan flack? I'm not sure. What's that?
I'm not sure either. Yeah, Tony, you're gonna have to elaborate on that, because I wondered the same thing about that.
Yeah, I mean, I need some elaboration, please. And it looks like Tony wanted to know if I'm a fellow Snow White fan.
So are you?
Oh my God, yes, she's my favorite. I love her so much.
Okay, so that's a solid question. So is Snow White your favorite princess?
Yes, absolutely. Well, like favorite princess from childhood, and then as an adult, Belle, because you know the whole reading thing.
Right. It's hard to be like a writer or a book lover and not secretly like love Belle. Like I completely agree. Sleeping Beauty is my favorite princess, but then also Belle, because I mean, I want to go downtown and just go to the bookstore and slide on the ladder and pick a book. It'd be great.
And then sit by the fountain and read it, and you know, saying about how everybody in your town sucks or whatever.
And right, and how this book is so much better than everything that's going on out there, which is what we're all thinking, like solid 80% of the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eugenie is, yeah, Tony and Eugenie are both saying, like, fan flag. People think she doesn't do anything, like she's not a character of substance, maybe?
I couldn't speak to that. I'm not aware that people don't like Cinderella. Well, that's not true. I have fans that or long-term readers that write me privately about their distaste for Cinderella. I don't know where it comes from, honestly.
I've never thought that.
I'm gonna say something very controversial, and I don't know how to put it. I mean, like, there's some princesses I think that are a little bit more interesting than others, you know? I'm not sure that her character was as established maybe as some of like the other characters, just talking from like a personal point of view, you know? I, sup I suppose, I mean, I think she's kind of cool that she like makes clothes for mice and
She has mice friends, and that's
she's
cool.
like literally like too happy to let Lady Tremaine like bog her down. I mean, Lady Tremaine is like, sweep the floors, mop this, beat the rugs, screw your mice, everything sucks, blah blah blah, give the cat a bath. And Lady Tremaine's like, I'm living my best life. I love making you do like everything horrible. And Cinderella's like, whatever, and just does it. And she's happy to live in her attic because it has a view of the castle. So I mean, I think a lot of what I see in Cinderella and maybe a lot of what Tony and some other characters see in her, or the readers see in her, is like what we bring out. I'm not, the film really focused on the animals a lot, so I don't think it's Cinderella's fault. I think that it might be that the film focused more on the animals than they focused on the human part of the story. But I love Disney.
I think that's a fair assessment too. Now that you mentioned it, I'm thinking about it. You don't get a lot of Cinderella backstory either. I mean,
there's not a lot of screen time for Cinderella, really,
No.
So, I mean, all the animals, I mean, the mice and Lucifer and, yeah, they all got more screen time, I think. I remember rewatching it over and over and over again when I wrote this book, and I was like, whoa, this movie is primarily about the animals.
Well, they're adorable, and they have songs. I mean, they sing songs, and they're adorable. I mean, I don't know. They've checked the boxes. They were like, how do we sell a movie? We've got a princess, cool. We've got singing animals. They're adorable, and there's a little magic. And it's a love story at the end. I think they got everything. They knew. They had the formula.
They did, and there is very few things cuter than a chubby mouse in a outfit.
Who knew?
Mm-hmm. And the mice are actually in the book, just so you know. They don't talk, but they're in the book.
They are there, and if you know who they are, you know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So Brandon has a question that could be very interesting, I think. How do you go about researching the different time periods? And that's sort of a loose, thing of itself, because you're in this sort of fairy tale world. What time is it? So how do you choose that, and how do you research that?
So, I mean, there's official time periods, in canon for all of the books, right? So I try to follow that, but because I'm creating something outside of Disney canon, I sort of fudge a little bit on the order in which like their stories happen, but I try to stay as close to the canon in terms of like the time period in which the events from the film happen. So in terms of research, I mean, I don't know if they're looking to find, if Brandon wants to know if I'm researching the time period specifically, and the answer to that would be yes. So, but I don't know that I have to do a lot of research, because I love reading about history, and I love reading about like weird things and what was proper and how things were done in different time periods. So I mostly already know.
That's a good feature. You don't have to do extra research on it a lot of times.
It just happens that the research I've done like really applies to these books, which is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do a lot of research for these books, but in terms of time periods, I've got that pretty down.
So, okay, Hugo has a question that you may or may not be able to answer.
Hello, Hugo. I love you.
Is Lady Tremaine irredeemable?
Hugo.
Put her on the spot.
She's relatable. She's a lot like the other characters, Hugo. Very relatable, but possibly not redeemable. I'm going to let the readers decide if she's redeemable or not, because I think in this instance, it's subjective.
I think in a lot of situations it does. There's so many different people in the world with so many different viewpoints, and the line between what's irredeemable for me and what's irredeemable for you and everyone else who reads it is not always the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think there's probably a few things that 99% of people can agree on, but everything else is gray area, you know? So
I mean, like with Corella, she wanted to kill animals, right? So in my mind, like I get why she wanted to do it. Like I totally get why she wanted to do it. But I also get that her brain maybe wasn't working quite right, and that her mother really did a lot to make her the person that she was. So I get why she went to that place. I totally get it. And I think that and this is one of the biggest topics that I've been trying to tackle in all of these books. Who needs fairy godmothers more? You know, these princesses who are beautiful and they have everything going for them, or these women who are being like tortured, like Grimhild. She, you know, has like a man in the mirror who's torturing her and like turning her into an evil person. She would be so much better off if she had like a fairy godmother. You know, the same thing with Maleficent. I mean, Maleficent, you know, they did try to help her, but the fairy godmother was actually working against her actively because she didn't fit the princess mold. And so that's sort of what I'm trying to tackle in these books. And we return to that topic actually in the Lady Tremaine book, which is what makes me super excited, is that we get to go back to the core of the ongoing story of who deserves fairy godmothers.
I think one of the things that I love about all these books is it's two questions. Is what you mentioned is, you know, who needs a fairy godmother, who needs that extra help, and the idea of the world is full of, it's not black and white. It's not good and bad. It's full of good people who do bad things occasionally or make mistakes occasionally. It's full of people who are bad, who do good things. It's full of people who we're all a mix of everything. No one is good or bad or whatever. And I think a lot of times in the world and media and social media especially, we break everything down in this very black and white way. You do, you know, one thing somebody doesn't agree with and everything is bad. You do one thing that's really great and now we ignore everything that you did before. And there's not a lot of this presenting people as real people. People do good things, people do bad things, people have accidents, people, you know, they deal with this. And your books allow us to see these characters that are bad as human beings. They're fairy tales, but as people, you know, with all of this nuanced issues that have happened to them and things they've done and things that have happened to them.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to redeem them. I'm not trying to like make anybody feel bad for them. I'm mostly just trying to make them real and relatable and make them feel like and have their voice be heard and share their story. And I really do feel it is up to the reader to decide whether they feel, you know, how they feel about the character at the end of the day. I do tend to gravitate towards giving them a good reason for doing what they've done, because I find in life that's the way it is. You know, that's why people have mental illness, or, that's why people struggle with, they've struggled with abuse, they've struggled with like multiple different things, and it affects them profoundly. And why wouldn't it affect like a character in a story, So, so yes, Hugo, I love you. I hope that you will tell me once you read her story if you think she's redeemable or not.
All right, so we have one question, might be our last question, we'll see, but I definitely want to hear what you have to say about it. Dylan.
I can't even believe how quickly this hour went by.
Right? It does. When I first started these back in April, I'm like, oh God, what are we going to talk about? What are we going to talk about? How am I going to keep this going for like an hour?
That's what I was
yeah, and then you just do. You just sit there and you talk, and an hour has gone by. So Dylan is asking you if it might be possible for one of the villains to be an LGBTQ character in the future.
So I'm trying to figure out how to answer that. I am in the LGBTQ community, being bi, and I think there should be more representation. And I don't think Disney has issue with LGBTQ plus characters. However, I do feel it would be problematic to make a villain an LGBTQ character, because I don't want to villainize LGBTQ people. So does that make sense? Am I making sense? I mean, I'm not saying LGBTQ people can't be bad too, but I just don't know how I feel about like using such a big platform to if I had like using my platform to put a Disney character out there that's LGBTQ, I'd rather them not be a villain. I'd rather them just be like a person in the world. If that makes sense.
It makes sense to me. I mean, we need more positive voices right now. And even if the story is good, people, again, a lot of times people see life as black and white. And so that's all they'll see.
Right. I mean,
that's unfortunate.
I have LGBTQ characters in my comic books, and some of them are villains, some of them were not. My Beauty and the Beast story was about two women who were in love. The story about Dominique and Morgan were also, bi, and so like I'm down, like with writing these stories. I feel like when these books have a huge following, and I feel I have a responsibility to the community to present people in our community in the best possible way. So I probably wouldn't make them a villain.
You could work them in somewhere else, not as an actual villain.
Yes.
And I'm actually very excited right now. I guess in the last couple of years, there have been a few books that have come out that I feel like finally there are LGBTQ characters. That's not what the story is about. They're just people.
Right.
And one of the first ones that I really read about that was Les, Sean Greer, I think. It won the Pulitzer. And everybody was like, why? And I thought, well, the reason is because it was this well-written story, obviously, but about a gay man it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about that at all. It was just a slice of life story. That was his story. And I loved it for that reason. It was one of the first times I've just read a book, and that was it. It wasn't the issue.
Right. I like both ways. I like stories like that, and I like it when there's a story about them being gay. I like all the stories with all the gays. Like, honestly, we need more. But I totally get where you're coming from, because I think the mindset is that, like, if we just make it not normal, but just make it a matter of fact. That's the term I'm looking for. Make it a matter of fact. It might become more matter of fact for people at large.
Completely.
But, yeah, I get why you gravitate to that. But I think
and also like similar to the villains, in that we don't have to make that the only issue. You know, they're these nuanced characters that are allowed to do all of these other things, and then when we present that, when people just live that, you know, read it, watch it, whatever, it normalizes it. Yeah, the right word, but it is that sort of here. This is life.
And then sometimes you just need to make something gay as fuck. Like it just has to happen.
You throw it in there. I mean, I'm not saying don't put it in ever at all. I'm just saying put it in like that's people do that. Hi. Yeah. So, well, we have reached our 6 o'clock.
We reached our 6 o'clock.
Well, it's an hour. It's not 6 o'clock for you. What time is it there?
4.
Oh, you have plenty of the day left.
I do. And I'm tipsy. So this is great.
It's going to be a great evening.
Venture forth, you know.
Thank you so much, Serena, for joining us this afternoon for Virtual Happy Hour.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun. I missed coming into the store, like once the whole COVID thing was happening. I used to love coming and visiting you guys, and so I feel like I'm visiting with you now. So that's nice.
And after everything's over and you get all settled and everything, you'll have to come back for a visit.
I will. Oh my gosh, of course.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, for asking questions, for being here with us this evening. I will put a link again in the comments to our website for all of Serena's books. If you order from the website, they will be signed, but if you would like them personalized, you have to give us a call. The number is on the website, so I'll go ahead and post that there. And yeah, have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I love you. Thank you for today.
Bye.